What was the moment when you realized that you wanted to dedicate this, like your rest of life, to this? Was there a defining moment?
I was in my mid-30s. I had been doing some endurance racing, so marathons, triathlons, and I went through a really stressful period, continued racing, wasn't sleeping well, and I got really sick. And I said, I feel like I'm dying. Something is wrong. I feel terrible. I was 4 months ago running a marathon, and now I can barely drag myself out of bed. Having had some training in pharmaceuticals, I understood what both of those drugs were going to do for me. One was an upper, one was a downer. What a terrible thing to do to your nervous system, right?
Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I am super excited to talk to you because in a world of conventional vanilla fitness advice, where it's all about calories in, calories out, running around in circles, you are going about it in a completely different way with your clients, not only healing them from inside out, but de-aging them in the process.
So I started out with a love of fitness, started out lifting weights around 15. And I also started working in a nursing home really young. It was my first job. I gave meds and shots, and I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor. And gosh, did I get an education? I really started to understand that these things weren't making people better. It was just keeping them alive with a really poor quality of life. And I got so disheartened, and it just led me on the journey that ended me up where I am now. Yeah.
So, what was the moment when you realized that you wanted to dedicate this, like your rest of life, to this? Was there a defining moment?
Yes, there was. I was in my mid-30s. I had been doing some endurance racing, so marathons, triathlons, and I went through a really stressful period, continued racing, wasn't sleeping well, and I got really sick. And I had just moved to Texas and got a referral from a friend to a doctor. I couldn't really find anyone holistic. Went to see this medical doctor, and in his couple of minutes that he spent with me was like, what's going on? And I said, I feel like I'm dying. Something is wrong. I feel terrible. I was 4 months ago running a marathon, and now I can barely drag myself out of bed. Oh, and I've also gained like 30 pounds almost overnight, not changing my diet, still being active. And he said, oh, okay, I'm going to write you a couple of prescriptions. I told him I wasn't sleeping well as well. He handed me a prescription for Phetermine and a prescription for Ambien. And I looked at him. He looked like he was potentially about to give birth to triplets. And I asked how old he was. He told me he was 42. And I thought, oh my gosh, he can't help me. He has no ability to help me. Not because he doesn't want to, he just doesn't know. And I handed him back the prescriptions and I said, thanks, I don't think you can help me. And I got up and walked out, and I realized I had to figure it out. And that was just the moment that I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Yeah.
Yeah, so many things to talk about here. Number one, this confidence and the bravery and the truthfulness that is needed with oneself to be able to look at somebody who's supposedly going to take care of you and make you better, and understanding that they themselves are not in a healthy state. Not many people have that strength and courage. We live in a society and we grew up in a society where we're just supposed to listen to authority. And here's a doctor who's in an authoritative position, and you are someone who's at the time unwell. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for standing up for yourself and realizing that, yes, you're writing me a prescription because you have the ability to, but I'm not going to follow this because this is not good for me.
Absolutely. I can thank my mom for that, giving me the courage to stand up and question how I took care of myself and question, is this healthy for me long term? I was very fortunate to be raised in a very healthy home.
But then what happened after that? Because at this point, you're actively suffering. Like,
Yeah.
you could have just decided, you know what, let's take the middle ground. I'm not going to do this long term, but I'm just going to do it short term to just give myself some relief while I figured it out. But you didn't do that. So you
No.
walked out of that office in pain. What was the next step?
Having had some training in pharmaceuticals, I understood what both of those drugs were going to do for me. One was an upper, one was a downer. What a terrible thing to do to your nervous system, right? Just, it's already suffering. And then to do that to it. I think I walked out of there and was like, I know I'm smart. I know I'm willing to work hard. I can figure this out. And I did. And it took a while. I won't say it was easy, but I know what it feels. I knew previously what it felt like to feel great and to be really healthy. And I was so ready to feel that way again. So I didn't give up. And it's really also what put me on the path to become a naturopathic practitioner and be able to work with people from a root cause point of view. Let's not just use things to mask your symptoms. Let's let's figure out why those symptoms, where they initiated from to begin with, and fix those problems so you can have a high quality of life long term.
Do you think that when we talk about it, it seems so common sense? It seems, hey, let's get to the root cause. Let's see what's happening, right? It's surprising how so many people don't even think that's a possibility. Is it just because we have been conditioned?
I totally think so. Don't you?
I don't know. For me, it's so commonsensical. I always want to go back to the root cause. I don't ever imagine myself being in a place where I just want to cover it up. So I don't understand the mindset. So for somebody who's seeing patients like this on a daily basis, you have way more data points than I do.
Yeah, I really think that so many people just aren't taught. I think the older generations were taught, shut your mouth, listen to your doctor, do what he says. Not everyone. My mom was from that generation, but my mom had a very different idea about health my mom was doing that stuff before it was cool. I was one of those kids that like when kids came to my house, like we didn't have junk food. And I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Little did I know I was lucky. But I think that, yeah, I think a big part of it, my husband and I have talked about this because he was raised so very different from how I was raised. And he always says to me, you think people just know, but they don't know. And it's really opened my eyes to that because our normal, I think, tends to be what we surround ourselves with, how we were raised, all those things. So this is my normal, but for someone else, it isn't their normal. And I do think a lot of people just don't know what their options are, what's out there, that they can heal and feel amazing and have just a fantastic quality of life.
Do you think it's just purely a lack of education? Or do you also think that there are forces out there that almost stigmatize naturopathic, holistic, these types of practices?
100%. 100%. There's stigma. We certainly live in a world that lacks accountability. So people love to go, I didn't know, my doctor said. And I would argue that we have the internet at our fingertips. It's pretty easy to figure stuff out if we're interested. So there's personal responsibility. 100. I'm so big on personal accountability. But I do think some people just don't even know the options that are out there because having talked to hundreds of people about this, I think there are enough people that are willing to do the work. They just didn't really know what options existed to them. And again, they're being told by the powers that be that it's quackery or it's snake oil. I went with my husband to a doctor appointment a few years ago. He was seeing an endocrinologist and we were having a discussion about blood sugar and about fixing it. And he said, how do you know this? And I said, I'm a naturopathic practitioner. And he goes, oh, snake oil. And I was like, yep. He literally
Your
said that
face.
to my face. And I just felt like sorry for him because he was so narrow-minded. He had such a closed mind. And where do you have to go from there?
Wow. Completely random, but also related. Do you ever wonder when something like this happens, if a similar comment would have happened if it was a male doctor who was instead of you? Have you ever faced that in the industry?
I don't really live in that space. I just don't care. I think this is more about someone's ego.
Yeah.
And I think if a man would have been in front of him, he still would have had the same ego, right? That kind of God complex, like, I know everything, don't question me. And
Yeah.
from my perspective, question everything. That's
Yeah.
how we learn, right?
Yeah.
That's how we get better and figure out better ways to help people. Question everything. I don't know everything. I have so much to learn. And that's what I look for in a practitioner that I work with, someone that's open-minded and someone that's curious and wants to know more. Show me where I'm wrong. Where can I make things better for the people I work with? Because I care and I want to help them.
It is definitely a personality type. Like, not many people go through life living in a very inquisitive manner where they want to learn and get better. I think that is a trait within us that is within us when we were a kid. But I think the adulting process, especially in our society, is somehow just losing that creativity and losing that curiosity and just getting beaten down and putting into a box. So how have you retained that in your life?
I don't know. I'm honestly not sure. I think I'm just a very curious person by nature. I love other cultures. I love learning. And thankfully, it's something I enjoy because I try to spend a couple of hours every day entrenched in something where I'm going to learn. And I enjoy that. I know everyone doesn't. I do. I don't, I wish I could tell you what has made me that way. Sometimes I just think it's our makeup, like who we are, don't you?
Definitely, there is something that is intrinsically within us, I think maybe by birth, but then
Mhm.
it also comes into the nature versus nurture. And you
Yes.
brought up your mom a couple times, and it seems like a very strong person. And I always say, how we do anything is how we do everything. So, how do you think she has affected your life, having her as a leader and seeing her live her life a certain way?
Oh, I tell people all the time I do what I do because of my mom. When other kids had pediatricians, my mom was taking me to iridologists and naturopaths and very alternative practitioners. And I didn't appreciate it the way I should have because it was my normal, right? Now I have a different appreciation for it. But my mom was very concerned with raising kids with the foundation of our health being really solid so that we would be healthy adults. And she didn't care that it wasn't popular. She had that within her to just, that didn't matter. Other people's opinions about it didn't matter to her. And so I think seeing that and having that example is certainly helpful. I have the personality for it. I tell my friends sometimes if I meet someone, I'm like, if they like me, great. If they don't, also great. I don't care. And it's probably a good thing when you're in a certain kind of business because you learn not to take things personal and you learn to let things roll off your back that could be really hard for someone else to maybe deal with. Yeah, those, I do think there are things that are just intrinsically in us. And then there's the nurture versus nature piece of it, which makes those things stronger or weaker. And certainly my environment made mine stronger.
Yeah, and sometimes I know this is true for my life, and sometimes when I meet amazing people like yourself, I notice it as well that we take some of our superpowers for granted. This thing that you're describing, this is a podcast that's primarily for entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur, we struggle, especially in the beginning day, and even not in the beginning days, like even much later, with what are people going to think? What if I approach somebody and they don't like me and they don't like my product or they don't like my idea? And the anxiety that comes with it, the imposter syndrome that comes with being able to be a certain way where we're confident within ourselves, we're confident with who we are, the skin that we have on our body, and we speak the truth. It's not that we're arrogant, but we are
No,
comfortable with what we are. That's a superpower.
I
You know?
agree. I totally agree.
So if I am listening to this podcast and I'm thinking, my God, Kimberly, she's so amazing, right? And I want to be like her. And I know she's saying that some of these things are intrinsic and comes within us, but I wish I could learn something, right? How to be bulletproof like that, even a little bit. What would you say? What are some things that the person can start doing to perhaps inching closer to that state of mind of security?
Practice it. We get better at anything we do regularly, right? Think about working out. The first time you go to the gym and lift a weight, it feels awkward. You feel uncomfortable. You're so sore, like for a few days, and it sucks. And you're like, I don't know if I want to do that again. But then you go, I want to get stronger. And so you go and do it again. And after a while, you start to, maybe I just speak for myself, but I bet I speak for you too. I love it when I get sore. I know that muscle's getting stronger, right? I look for that. That encourages me that I'm doing the right thing. And so you change your mindset about things and you learn from a business aspect, right? People are going to have whatever opinion they want to about you, no matter what you do. Many times people already have their mind made up. Okay, awesome. It doesn't affect my life, right? So you just keep trucking and I'm focused on what I'm doing and how I can get better. I don't have time to worry about what other people think. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And for me, we're cut from the same cloth. We always have too many fingers in too many pots because we want to push the boundaries and we want to learn as much as we can and all of that. Sometimes I will get myself into situations I'm like, I'm going to do this. One of the tactics that I have is I just focus on the very moment that I'm in and doing
Yeah.
the best that I can. Do you have any tips or tactics that you utilize to reel yourself back in if you're realizing you're floating away in stress or anxiety?
Yeah, I would say I started practicing this when I started doing endurance sports. Running was really hard for me. And so I decided that it wasn't going to kick my butt and I was going to run a marathon. Run towards things that are hard. Don't run away from them because that's where the growth is. That's where the opportunity is, in my opinion. Comfort sounds nice, but that's where people go to die. If you want to grow and you want your life to be big and you want to do big things, you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and you have to get comfortable with change and you have to get comfortable with pushing yourself and going, okay, this is a little outside the boundaries. Hope I don't suck. I'm going to do my best. And whatever comes from that, I'll learn from it, reevaluate, how can I do it better next time? That's my personal philosophy.
Is there a cost to all of this? It's obviously wonderful to be able to live a life where we're pushing the boundaries and we're trying to figure out what we're truly made of, right? Instead of
Mhm.
just accepting the default or the status quo. But do you ever pause and think that there's a cost to this?
Yeah, I think there's a cost to anything, right? It's whether or not it's a cost you're willing to pay. For me, I am. I'm not a person that needs a ton of people around me. I need my handful of people that are loyal, that I trust, that I'm close to. I don't need a big circle. I don't have time for a really big circle. When you're doing things and getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, the cost is you're focused and your time is focused on those things. I would say it's probably more that aspect of it. I weigh the things I do. I look at, I'll get invited to something and I go, is that how I want to spend my time? My time's really valuable. And it's the one currency that we all have the same amount of hours in our day,
Yeah.
but we have this bank account we're taking from, and we really don't know how much money's in the bank. And so I look at that and go, I want to put my time where it matters to me. Starting out with people at end of life, I was given some great advice. I remember one lady telling me, make choices that you're proud of. I was asking her for life advice, and she said, make choices that you're proud of. She said, whatever you do, if you're questioning if you should do it or not, think, when I look at myself in the mirror tonight, will I be proud of the person looking back at me? What great life advice, right? To a kid from somebody that was 90.
Yeah.
So I think those are things I think about. That's how I try to live my life, because having fun is important too. Yes, having balance is important. I know what I enjoy, and I enjoy work. I enjoy the work I do. It doesn't feel like work because it's fun to me. And so I'm always looking for, where can I where can I take my time and divide it up in the best possible way where I still have time to do things with the people I love, but I'm also moving towards my goals. And that's just, we're all always juggling, trying to balance things. I think that's part of the human experience.
So, what are certain goals that you're working towards right now?
Always like, how can I help more people? I have such a passion for helping people age well, because I've seen the ugliness of what it looks like to reach end of life and have someone feeding you and changing your diaper, and just some of these just barely existing. And that, I think here in the US, we're really good at keeping people alive for a long time with a really poor quality of life. I want to change people's mindset around that and help them understand you can a long lifespan and a really high quality of life. But you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And there is work associated with it, right? You don't get to sit on the couch and eat donuts and expect to have a long, healthy life. The two don't go together. And I'm not saying you can't ever do that. That cannot be your norm. So getting people to understand that the value of move, your body was made to move. What you put in your mouth, your cells are made of. Like, when you get people to think about it like that, they're like, oh, shoot, right? When you get people's buy-in that they can have a high quality of life, and then showing them things, showing them some of these, like, I have a really cool longevity protocol that I learned about and I'm using with people, and there's science behind it, like a lot of science behind it, that these bioregulators repair the repair systems in our body. And so you can help people fix some things to increase the quality of their life so they can age better. Those are goals of mine, like finding ways to show and to tell more people you don't have to settle for this slow, steady decline into a million pharmaceuticals that are just mind numbing. That does not have to be the end of your life.
No, I love it, what you just said, that so many of us are focused on the problem of prolonging our lifespan. We are not concerned as much about improving the quality of the lifespan. And the area that you specialize in, one of the areas that you specialize in, is having a long, healthy life, longevity.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because that is something almost everybody wants. Everybody almost wants to live a long, healthy life. So for those who are listening, if there are certain things that they could just do to get started with the process, what are the first couple of steps they should take?
It's always a toss up for me. Do I say nutrition or exercise? But I think for so many people, one of the biggest areas of opportunity is start moving. We are in a society now where people are not moving their bodies and their bodies are just falling apart because use it or lose it. So I usually tell people, if you're not doing anything, just start walking. It can be 10 minutes a day. Start walking, increase it to 15 minutes, increase it to 20 minutes. Like, you have to move to be healthy. I was just reading a statistic this morning about how increasing your steps decreases your possibility of death from all mortality. Walking between 6 and 10,000 steps a day can decrease your chances of death by 50%. 50%, that's massive. And that's not that much movement. The problem is a lot of people are moving like 3,000, 3,500 steps a day, which is nothing. It's nothing. And their bodies are just sick because they're not able to use up glucose. Their circulation's poor. They have no muscle. It's a whole bunch of problems. So I think if I would say a first thing, I would say start with walking. And the next thing I would say is start eating real food, right? Let's just uncomplicate it. Eat real food that you recognize, that doesn't have this label with 30 or 50 ingredients on it, right? Eat real food. And you can refine it from there. But I think if you start doing those two things, you're going to make some serious headway.
So definitely start with walking, eat real foods. What about strength training? Is that something that is important?
I can't emphasize enough how important it is to your longevity. But when you tell a person that's not doing anything to go into the gym and lift weights, I think a lot of people are seriously overwhelmed by that, intimidated by that. It just feels too big. Does that make sense? So when I get people moving, I'm like, all right, now we have to resistance train. And there's a lot of ways to do it. I'll tell people I have lots of options so I can be successful, because some days I don't have enough time to get to the gym. I have an X3 bar at my house. I love it. That sucker, you can get a great workout in a super short amount of time. I take it with me when I travel. It's amazing. Like, you can do something in 10 minutes that's going to be incredibly valuable. Like, I think we think something has to be like, oh, I've got to spend an hour and a half at the gym for it to be valuable. No, you don't. You just got to go in there, put your phone down and work.
Yeah.
In terms of longevity, let's talk about weight training or resistance training. There are so many reasons why lean muscle mass increases our longevity. There's some research around your leg strength, your quadricep strength in particular, in association with your brain health, right? Our muscle has an impact on our cognition. When we don't have enough lean muscle, as people age, they're digesting their food poorly. There's the issue of protein synthesis as we age, which most people are not aware. From 20 to 40, our need for the amount of protein it takes to create protein synthesis in the muscle pretty much doubles. That's big. I'll have ladies in their 70s being like, we do start with protein. I have an egg. Sorry, 6 grams ain't going to cut it. You need 40 or 45 grams. You have to be really purposeful about what you're doing to age well. And so getting people to understand that they need to think about their protein consumption first I'm a big fan of eat your protein first, and you're not going to overeat the other things that you shouldn't. You can still have your baked potato. You can still have your veggies, whatever you like. When you're full from a steak or a nice piece of fish, you're less inclined to overeat those calories that tend to put weight on us that we don't want, not lean muscle, right? Getting people to understand you have to have the muscle, or you have to have the protein for the muscle to grow. And then you have to do things that allow your body to maintain lean muscle, because women in particular, we lose muscle faster than men as we age. And it's, that's where, again, starting out in geriatrics, you see someone come into a nursing home, their kids go, oh gosh, my dad's super healthy. He just fell in and broke his hip. He's here to rehab. He'll be out in a few months. Statistically, he probably won't make it. So you take someone that's already frail and you lay them in a bed for 3 months to heal, and now they have even more muscle loss. The amount of people that die within 10 months of breaking or fracturing a hip is insane. And so these are things we can do by resistance training, by walking. Walking is great for maintaining lean mass, and then getting adequate protein. It's huge. It is so underappreciated and under preached to the older population. Yeah.
what is adequate protein? Because going on the internet, there's so many advices, like 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. What would you recommend for someone to start out with?
I'm a big fan of 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, right? So if you weigh 150 and you're at a good healthy weight for your body, you want to eat 150 grams of protein. I understand that it can be hard to reach that number. I'm a huge fan of using amino acids to supplement that. The other thing, back to the protein conversation, as we get older, when we get injured or hurt, a lot of time there's not that amino acid reserve, and you need an amino acid reserve to heal and repair. So getting that protein level up in the body is so beneficial for so many reasons. But yeah, I like 1 gram per ideal pound of body weight. I think for most people, that's if you make an effort and you work on it, you can get there. You're not going to get there by accident, but you can get there.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on with the same topic, because I used to be obese, right? And I remember multiple college degrees. I would be considered what is called as a smart person.
Yeah.
And I remember being completely confused because there is so much information out there. And I used to feel so frustrated. Like, how am I not able to figure this out? I have multiple master's degrees. Why can't I lose weight? And a lot of the advice that you hear, you also talked about like eating real foods. When you're eating real foods, the Mediterranean diet is real food. The paleo diet is real food. The keto diet is real food. The carnivore diet is real food. And then I found myself just flip-flopping from here to there. So even after I was past the stage of a dozen donuts for breakfast, that's not even an exaggeration. That has happened more than one occasion. Oops, it was still very confusing. Oops, even when I was past that stage in life, it was still very confusing. So if you were going to tell somebody like, okay, here's a well-rounded approach to go about it, do you have any preferences, anything that you start out your clients with?
Yeah, because people ask me about that regularly. And because I'm a huge eat meat, it's the most assimilatable form of protein in this agenda that's being pushed with veganism and vegetarianism. I don't have an emotional attachment to anyone's diet. I'm just here to give you the information. And there is a lot of science that says ounce for ounce, the most nutrient dense thing you can eat is red meat. Take it or leave it. It's just information, right? Don't get mad. It's just information. My goal is to help you be healthy and help you understand like the diet that serves me may not be the diet that serves you. I really don't care what diet you pick. What do you think you will have long-term success with? Excuse me. It's really about, we get caught up in these ridiculous things that don't even matter. I'm carnivore. I've done the carnivore diet. I think it can be amazing for helping people heal when they have histamine issues, autoimmune issues. I think for most people, it's not sustainable for life. It's incredibly restrictive. And so getting people to understand you can pick a diet. Is that really a way you think you're going to be able to eat long-term? And if you can't, then maybe that's not the diet for you. There are times you may need to pick something based on a health issue or something. I get that, but I'm talking about the average person, right? What do I see myself being happy eating long term? And I'm also a person that believes in moderation. Like we all have things we love that aren't necessarily great for us. Have it once in a while, because it's not what you're doing once in a while that's a problem. It's what you're doing most of the time. Let's be honest. That's what's showing up in places you don't want it to show up.
Yep. Oh my gosh. So true. So true. When we're talking about longevity, when we're talking about healthy lifespan, we're talking about feeling good. Your average entrepreneur is working so hard, working long hours, and often almost being in that position myself, we start forgetting to take care of ourselves. And that also manifests into other ways, like the anxiety we are carrying and the stress we are carrying. And all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, we are hearing so much about gut health and inflammation and all these things, right? And they all feeding together. If you had to lay out 3-4 steps, you already talked about eating real food. You already talked about moving. Just start with walking. If there was 2 or 3 other things that you would say that an average entrepreneur can just get started with now to help their mental health and physical health, what would they be?
Move your body. No, I will say, right, as an entrepreneur, so I'll tell you what works for me. The first thing I do in the morning is exercise, because I know that my day can get crazy, that I can think, oh yeah, I've got time to slip into the gym here. And then somebody will call and need to come in, and that doesn't happen. So when I get the things that are really important for keeping me healthy out of the way, then I can take care of other people. If I'm not healthy, I can't take care of the people I love, and the people that I want to take care of. And it's really like that even when you're an entrepreneur. I don't care what your business is. Most people are, hey, I'm taking care of my family, right? You need to be healthy in order to do that. And making yourself a priority is not selfish. It's mandatory for your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health to take care of yourself. And when you can, right? Do I have days occasionally where it just doesn't work to start with my day with exercise? Yes, but that's the exception, not the rule. So back to whatever you do, if the rule is driving you towards health, that's what I think is really important. And I think when you schedule it in and keep that promise to yourself, you're going to be able to do so much more because you're healthy. I have more energetic, my brain works better, I can think quicker when I've had exercise.
I love it. I love it. How do patients find you? How do you work with them? Tell us a little bit about how people can get help from you.
Yeah, so I have a little clinic in Boerne, Texas, and I also do work with people remotely. I have people that'll reach out. They've been referred from someone that's seen me or they find me somehow. I do work with people remotely, but the thing I enjoy doing the most, I work with a lot of people for either a 6 or 12-month period to help them regain their health or optimize their health. I do have people that come see me and they're really pretty healthy, but they're like, look, is there anything here I can do to optimize my health? And most of the time there is. And so we work on those things. I have a lot of people that come see me that are really sick and they've been to see, I had one lady come see me and I've seen 17 medical doctors and specialists and no one has been able to help me. And you're like, okay, no pressure.
She says as she rolls up her sleeves.
I have a testimonial on my website from this lady. I think we were successful. I dig in and I do, like, my initial consult with someone is an hour and a half. Why? Because 5 or 10 minutes of asking them about their history, it's just not enough. If you have someone that's been, I find that many people that get really sick, they've had some very stressful event in the year leading up to them getting sick. And finding out about those things, right? Emotional things make us physically sick. And so being able to dig in, and sometimes that takes a little time with people. You have to build a relationship, you build trust so that they're willing to open up to you and talk to you about things that are maybe uncomfortable. But it's what I love. I love figuring out problems and figuring out how to solve them. So if people can find me, I have social media at Kimberly Verbeke Wellness is my Instagram handle. I do post to TikTok and Facebook too, but I'm active on Instagram. My website, that's a great place to find out more about what I do. We do a lot of different IV therapies in our clinic, some not real standard things, some things that are a little bit unique. We have a really cool, I mentioned, longevity protocol that we're using with people that is backed by over 40 years of science that is just so cool. And it's something I'm really excited about because I don't know of anything else like it out there. And it's not my thing. I've learned it from Dr. Bill Lawrence and Dr. Cavinson, but there's really cool science behind it. So yeah, we're doing some fun, unique things, just all in the effort to help people age better and have a really high quality health span.
I love it. Kimberly, in a world of quick fixes and shortcuts and band-aids that we want to put up on the holes of the Titanic, just to be able to make money, move the person out of the door so you can get the next person in. There are people like yourself who are spending 90 minutes on an initial consultation when data shows that an average PCP will see you for 7 minutes when you first walk in.
I know.
It just goes to show the level of dedication you have as a practitioner, but also more importantly, the type of heart you carry within yourself. And these things cannot be taught. These things come from within. So the fact that you have dedicated your entire life to the betterment of people's health, because you could have just done this for yourself and moved on. You could have healed yourself and you moved on, and you could have had a wonderful life and you could have done 1,200 other things. But the fact that you didn't and you decided to give back shows just how wonderful of a person you are. And it's such a pleasure to have met you, and it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Any last words for our audience members?
Thank you for the kind things that you said. I appreciate that. I said I work with some people that are really sick and they've lost hope. And that makes me so sad to see that. And I would just remind people, if you are sick, but you are breathing, your body can heal. You can get well. Do not lose hope. Just, you need to reach out to the right person, someone that's not going to give up when they can't help you find the answers. They're going to dig deeper. There are answers out there for you and you can heal.
Love it. Don't settle. Look
Yeah.
out for solutions, because there are people out there who are doing this it is up to us to be able to find the solutions that we need and then
Yeah.
trusting the person that we have put our care into. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the show, Kimberly. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you for having me.